right? And then I started to see my mom struggling. And so I just jumped into the whole dope selling world. And once that happened, man, my addiction like really took over.
Hey everybody, welcome to the I Am Redemption podcast. Today I would like to introduce you to a very near and dear friend of mine. I'd like to introduce you to my buddy Russel Matthews. Russell and I came in contact early when I was in my journey with recovery. I had moved to Austin, Texas, and got to know Russell pretty quickly. We hit it off immediately. Still one of my best friends in this world. I was blessed to be the best man at his wedding. He's been with me for my entire journey. He's seen my ups and downs through recovery, and he's been there every step of the way with me. I'd like to introduce everybody to Russell. Russell, you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, a little bit of your journey?
Sure. Man, it started off pretty crazy. So let's go back to childhood. My parents divorced when I was about 11, and I feel like right before then, I was being left with minimal supervision and like able to kind of do my own thing, but I always felt separated from the rest of the kids at school. So like part of my main thing at that point in my life was I didn't really think that I fit in anywhere. Mm-hmm. And so I felt apart from or separated. Right. And then when my parents actually separated, I felt even more separated from other kids at school and like seeing them with their parents, dropping them off. And it was just me and my mom. So starting the journey from there, I had already like started trying drugs and selling weed at school and like starting to smoke cigarettes and going through this little phase where
badass shit.
Yeah, I was rebelling against the system and like really not knowing how to process. Now that I look back on that, I didn't know how to process what was going on in my life at this time. And so my dad disappearing and starting his new life, I went to the streets to find my love there and started hanging out with the wrong crowd, man. Some gangsters and dope dealers and all kinds of crazy stuff out in the streets. And they were all older than me. And they had what I wanted, really. Mm-hmm. They all had their little place. They had all their friends that hung out together, their apartments and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, I really want that. Right. I want to have a spot where I can just come on. And so I ended up basically falling into them and becoming family with these guys and gals. Well, shit went south fast. Going through middle school, started getting beat up, and like was really scared of getting in fights and shit. Mm-hmm. As I got out of middle school, I got tired of being afraid all the time. So I met this retired vet that he was like a couple buildings over from where I was at. This retired vet who was home all the time, man, and started talking to him about the stuff that he learned over there and whatnot, and so he started getting into like hand-to-hand combat. I was like, well, man, like, can you teach me some of that? And so every day after school, I'd go over there, and he'd literally hand-train me on a lot of the shit that they used over there, and some things he picked up afterwards, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, some of these other things. And so quickly I fell in love with the discipline of that. And I started to actually go to him with his gym and like have a sensei and all that stuff. But on the same note, right, I'm still out in the streets. I'm still selling dope. I'm still doing crazy stuff with all these older people who are on a totally another, like different level. I mean, I'm like 12, 13 years old. And these people are like 18 to 23.
Are they into the hard stuff by this time?
Yeah, they're all like kicking people's doors in and stealing money for dope and like doing whatever they could to get by at that point. So growing up watching this happen in front of me, I was like, well, that's the way to survive. Mm-hmm. Right. And then I started to see my mom struggling. And so I just jumped into the whole dope selling world. And once that happened, man, my addiction like really took over.
Right.
I started to need to get high or to be high to even cope with society. Like going anywhere out in public where there's a bunch of people, I always felt nervous. Like I said, I always felt a part of or separated from. I really wasn't comfortable in my own skin at that time. So going through high school really sucked, man. I was such a bad kid at that point, man, that I fell in love with graffiti art, and I started doing all this graffiti art and shit on the side, tagging up things, and cops found out about my name, and they put me on the gang list, and once you get on the gang list, that's it. Like, you're there.
Yeah.
So anytime you get pulled over or messed with, they automatically assume, so they'll search you and do whatever. Well, they came to pick me up from summer school, and I had an ounce of weed in my pocket. But they came to pick me up for vandalism because they found my name on a cop car. I had, like, literally pieced up this whole cop car.
Oh, wow. That's ballsy.
Yeah. Yeah, overnight one night. And we did that and, like, a whole block down this one street of all these fences. And we didn't touch anybody else's car, but they were all a bunch of fences all along this whole block. It was like $250,000 worth of damage. So they put me on probation.
Okay.
And I'm basically on an ankle monitor at this point in my life. And after that year, my mom was so fed up. She was like, you got to go stay with your dad. So she sent me down south. And at this point in my life, I'm like on this acid trip where I was able to get acid like really cheap. So I would go spend the weekends with my mom up north, take it down south and go sell it. So she just kind of like excelled me into the environment without even knowing what she did.
Not meaning to.
No, of course not. So she excels me into this environment, and it just opened my network up.
Right.
And so now I got people from south, north, everywhere else that I'm pushing out to, and I'm feeling a part of at this point. And that's what I craved and wanted the whole time.
Right.
Let's fast forward a little bit. Did that all through high school, right? So my girlfriend gets pregnant. I'm 16, about to turn 17 in a month. My girlfriend gets pregnant, and I don't know what the fuck to do. At this point, they had kicked me out of school. Like, they're like, you just can't be here anymore. So they kicked me out. I went to secondary school and graduated early, so I could work full time. And I wanted to try to step away from dealing drugs at the time. So it made me grow a heart, basically, in that point in my life where I was like, man, I can't keep doing this shit forever. I got to do something different. So I tried it. I did the 2 jobs thing, and I just wasn't making enough money to take care of things. And so I eased back into that environment. And the moment I did, the addict in me kicked in, and I started going off the rails.
I want to stop you for 1 second. The community aspect, right? Just wanting to belong. You know, how important do you feel that it is for young people nowadays, or just at any time? Because I know for me, you know, I was a basketball player. That was my identity. And I got in a bad car accident and lost my ability to play basketball at the level that I was and everything like that. And so here I am not knowing who I truly am anymore because now I've lost my identity as this basketball player. And so the easiest group for me to get into was the party group. You know what I mean? As long as you got stuff, you're in there.
Right.
And so I segued very well right into that. And it, you know, obviously got a hold of me like you got a hold of you. But
easy
how important do you think that is for young people nowadays?
Man, I think it's huge. Even more so now than it used to be. Because, like, when we grew up, we didn't have Facebook and all this stuff to lean on to
Thank God.
Connect. Yeah, right. To be connected in the way that everybody's connected today. So I think it's also, actually, my true opinion is it's harder now.
Yeah.
Because you can stay at home and think you're connected to something, but use that as kind of a drug to validate yourself.
Right.
And so I feel like there's people seeking validation online that aren't going out in the real world and looking for it anymore. And they can still feel alone in their room or on their phone looking at Facebook. Feeling in that moment like you're attached is different than actually being connected.
Right. They're looking for validation, but they're not earning validation.
Right.
You know what I mean? Then you're not really accomplishing. You can portray something online or social media and stuff like that and get that fake validation, but you know in your heart that's not really you.
Absolutely.
But you go out and you do something great, and then you get that validation from it. It's completely different.
Totally different. So I think it's both sides.
Right, for sure.
But now, so probably be worse than it used to be.
Yeah.
But man, to shorten it even further, like going from there, that 2 years from my daughter being born until she was about 2, like I tried, and nothing could hold me back from going back to the drugs. Like I just couldn't stop.
What at that point? What had a hold of you, or just drugs in general?
At that point, I was taking a bunch of Vicodin. It was opiates all the way at that point because I could hide it and I could take these pills without anybody seeing. And I'm starting at this point in my life to get connected with some doctors in Houston and do this weird chain of events that gave me the ability to basically move the amount of pills that I wanted to, but also take whatever I wanted to.
Right.
So I was like, I always traded off. When I was selling all this, I was selling it so that I could
Right. Me too.
do my own thing.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I could feel needed and wanted from everybody else. That was kind of important for me. That was my piece of validation, like we were speaking of at that point in my life. And also my daughter coming into the picture was like, just changed my whole view about family. And watching my parents divorce and all that, I'm already like not believing in marriage and whatnot. And then me and my daughter's mom, both addicts, right? Are trying to do this now. And we're still kids ourselves. We don't know what the hell we're doing. So shit got even worse. We argued, broke up. I went like full on into dealing drugs, like full on to that part-time job as a fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like doing runs for me. Like it was too much.
Right.
And at that point, I'm like moving from car to car. Like I had different cars set up to where I could, with like magnet boxes and all this like crazy drug trafficking shit going on. So I got so deep into it that I didn't really realize what I was doing at the time, but I got so blessed and so lucky to not get busted doing that. But I went through a period there towards the end. So let's just talk about the end of it. Towards the end, I wasn't able to see my daughter at that point, and I was kind of going off the rails, and I couldn't get pills that I wanted to. So I started drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up with a DWI. Well, that DWI that I got, I was on my way back from Houston that night. I decided that it was a good idea to stop by the bar and try to sell off some of these pills and make some money back that I just lost. And I ended up drinking way too much and taking a bunch of Xanax, so I don't remember going home, but I woke up to the EMT with his thumb knuckle in my sternum trying to wake me up. And he said that was the fourth time he had done it. He said, I've never had to do that many times with somebody. And I was like on the verge of all the opiates that I had taken that day. And I'm starting to do heroin at this point because it's cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
All that I had done that day basically led me to an overdose that I didn't even know I was having. And if it wasn't for my neighbor that was walking the dog at that time, called the cops, I don't know if I'd be here.
Right.
But I don't remember any of that night. I woke up in the hospital that next day and they let me go for some reason. I don't know why. I guess the cop went to lunch or something like that.
Right.
And anyways, I wake up, I come to, and I just walk out. I'm like, all right, I'm out. And then right back into it. So in a 45-day period, I ended up getting 3 DWIs and my third possession.
Those are legit numbers right there.
Yeah. So every 2 weeks, I was getting a DWI bonded out. 2 weeks later, another DWI bonded out. And sure enough, I find myself on the right day going to a court date at the wrong time. I was too early. I was about 4 hours early. And the lady walks back there and she's like, what's your name again? And as soon as she said that, I was like, I'm out of there. Like, I just saw it in her face. I was like, yeah, I'm done. So I turn around and I give my friend my phone and my wallet and stuff. And I'm like, hey, call my mom, tell her that I'm done. And they set me in this back room, and I just remember feeling so relieved.
That it was just all finally,
that it was
just over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I was at that jumping off place where I knew that I had a problem. I just hadn't really fully admitted it to myself yet. And their first offer when they came at me was 40 years, man. I sat in that jail for the better part of a year trying to work out a deal. Well, it comes to fruition. This whole storyline kind of comes together in this moment. In county jail, talking to my lawyer, and he's like, hey, I'm the son of an alcoholic. And he's like, man, if you want, I know this judge, I've played golf with him on the side. Like, if you want me to, I'll ask him, see if you can get some help. Do you think you're ready for some help? And I just break down, and the waterworks start coming out. And I'm like, yes, I need help.
Mm-hmm.
First time in my life, I was like, yes, I need help. Can't do this anymore. So he goes to the prosecutor, tells the prosecutor, and talks to the judge, and they come back. Judge pulls me in front of him, and he's like, "Look, I'm gonna give you 2 years lockup. You have to go to a long-term treatment center, and we're gonna extend your probation for a year after you get out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you finish this probation, I will knock one of these DWIs off so that you don't have any felonies." It's like, thank you so much.
Right.
Because I was on felony probation when they brought me in. And at this point, I've been through so many sick relationships as far as females go that I didn't know what a healthy relationship looked like. And my girlfriend at the time was pregnant, and she was also in prison. So here we are. I got a girlfriend in prison with a baby. I got my daughter out there whose mom is untrustworthy at this point, and also out there doing her drug addict thing. And then I'm sitting down trying to do this time, and now I'm forcefully sober, and I don't know how to deal with any of this internal shit that's going on. I don't know how to process my emotions. I've been getting high for so long that I'd never really dealt with any of my trauma or pain from all that shit prior. So that year, like, I went through all this shit to try to find out. Like, I had a little self-help book that I was reading every day, and I was, like, working out a lot in there and, like, trying to, like, somehow harness this energy and, like, do something with it. My spirit was just not okay.
Right.
So anyways, I get into this place, this pod that they put me in, and there's this guy. He was sober for 4 years, relapsed, and wrecked his car, and they brought him back in there. And he teaches me about this program. He's like, "Hey, man, I've done these steps before, and I really had some freedom." And the funny part is I saw him walking around the yard, and this guy looked like he was happy in a place where there is no happiness.
Right.
And I wanted to ask him for a couple of days, like, "What are you on?" I was like, "I need some of that. Whatever you're on right now, I need some of that." So I did. I walked up to him, and I'm like, "Dude, what are you on, man?" It's like, "What is your deal, bro? I need some of that, please. Like, I need something to change the way I feel, because I'm a drug addict, and that's what I want."
Right.
To instant gratification. So it brings this to me, and we do this little inventory where he's like, "Okay, so what are you resentful at?" And then he asked me some questions, like, "What's your resentment here? What's your part?
Mm-hmm.
What was done to you? What was your part?" And we went through the whole, like, 3 or 4 things, like small little inventory, and I felt some relief from that. And that was my first experience with something like that. And I wanted more of that, and I already knew that I was headed to rehab, so I started to look into that program. And let's fast forward a little bit for time purposes. So I go in through this stint in my lockup or whatever. I did about 9 to 10 months county, and then I went over to prison holding, and then I went over to rehab. So I spent 11 months in rehab, long-term treatment facility, Granger, Texas. Great spot. I'm pretty sure it's still there, but COVID's kind of changed everything with them. But they do both 12 steps and a cognitive program together. So as I'm going through this, I learned how to deal with my emotions, how to set some long-term, short-term goals. I figured out real quickly that it was a malady inside me, that there was just this spirit that was yearning for something higher than myself to concentrate on, something bigger than me. And so I had this God-sized hole, if you will, inside of me that I couldn't fill with all the drugs and all the cool people and all the stuff that I was doing. And I get into that space. And I shined, man. But I was so rebellious and so stuck inside of myself that I couldn't get out. So
yeah,
leaving out of there, trying to practice all that stuff in real life was super hard. So I get out. I don't have a license, because with all those drug charges, like, they automatically suspend your license. So I don't have a license. I got to take the city bus everywhere I go. It's a lot of humility involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
Start going to these meetings, start meeting these people that are living this life outside of using drugs and doing all the crazy stuff. So once I did that, I realized there was other people out here that were doing it drug-free, and they had a purpose, and I saw this light in their eyes, and I wanted that. So, so I started hanging out with the people that have had some time, they've been through this thing, they're connected, and I got super connected into that world. So that last day when I went into court, that was April 27, 2010. And as of now, I've been sober a little bit over 13 years. And my life is totally different.
Right. And I could
Totally different.
I could speak to that, and I've been there through a lot of that with you. What do you think? Was it that day you're sitting in the prison cell, getting ready to get sentenced, or what? Like, what would you say was your absolute rock bottom moment where you just kind of take a look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, I have to change some shit?
It was that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they put me in that little holding cell, and I was like, I was still drunk from the night before. I smelled like a pound of weed.
Mm.
And I was just like, what am I doing?
Right.
Myself?
Showing up to court like that.
Yeah, I was like, this is stupid. And I just had a realization that I was just being super ignorant to the fact of life. Like, I can't keep living.
Right.
That's the thought that came out. But man, since then, I've done a lot of progression work on who I am, man, and I've gone through that cognitive process outside in real time, in real life. I continue to help other guys in sobriety and try to figure out something to do aside from getting high.
Yeah.
To change the way they feel, but more importantly, to recognize the way they feel.
Mm.
Like I had to learn how to be emotional. And it was okay as a man to like show some emotion, and share that with people, especially another man, because I was brought up that you don't give up.
Yeah,
quitting is for losers and all that. But honestly, I had to learn that to progress, I needed to surrender, and surrender was taking the winning team's side,
right?
Not quitting,
right? For sure.
In my head, like that switch had to be made for me to actually change, but. Man, I've progressed really far since then. Absolutely.
So with all your progression, what would you say was your moment of redemption? When were you able to kind of take a look around and been like, oh shit, like I made it, like I'm back? You know what I mean? Like you knew you weren't that person anymore. What would you say was your moment?
My moment was, it was about 2 years outside of treatment when I got out. I got my license back. And I got my car sitting outside of the sober house, and I'm still in the sober house at this point, and I'm paying all this stuff off, and I still have some cash in my pocket. And people would call me and be like, "Hey, can you come pick me up?" And I'd be like, "Yes." And that was my like, I'm there, like I can help other people now,
right?
And that was like my whole transitional time where I was like, "Man, I made it." To me, it wasn't about money or anything; it was about being able to be there, for somebody, like somebody was there for me,
to show up for somebody.
Absolutely.
Dude, there's someone I don't know if people who if regular everyday people that don't have the addiction gene that we have or the experience and stuff, I don't know if they understand how much of what you're saying translates. Going back to what you said about understanding that you had a God-sized hole, or God is can be a controversial topic and turn people off and stuff like that, but you said the key, and it was just believing in something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
But that's not just a recovery thing, you know what I mean? Like that's something that I think if regular everyday people would try to comprehend and think about that a little bit and understand, hey, the world is bigger than me. You know what I mean? And you're not the center of the universe. You know what I mean? The world does not revolve around you, all that stuff. But dude, it put that belief, knowing that there's been far too many things to happen in my life that are too miraculous to be coincidence. You know what I mean? And you start realizing like, oh shit, there's something out there. Every time I try to put my hands on things, it gets destroyed and ruined. But the moment that I just kind of sat back and started doing exactly what you're talking about and helping people and putting good energy out into the world, whatever that thing is out there that's looking out for me started to, and it has brought the best people in the world into my life. It has provided me opportunities that I never thought would be a possibility. I know you and I, we've, in the past couple of years, we both bought houses, we both gotten married, and I was just having a conversation with somebody the other day. It was like, you don't understand how
that's huge.
Like that was never going to be a thing in my life. You know what I mean? Like someone said something about me renting my house. They're like, "Oh, you rent a house?" I was like, "No, like I own it." And it was like, oh shit, I own a house.
And
like,
it's huge.
How the fuck does this happen to me? But I think dude, it's fundamental. And I learned a lot of that from you. You helped me when I first walked into the room. You know what I mean? You welcomed me with open arms. You know what I mean? And we just, a couple conversations, I was like, oh, like,
that was it.
Yeah, this dude's just like me. You know what I mean? But like, you helped me. You were there. I remember you picking me up outside my treatment center at the coffee shop and taking me to a meeting. And it's little things like that taught me, that put me on the path of doing the same thing. And then that's why you're able to stand here and to say that with your double-digit years of sobriety right now, and you know what I mean, living the life that you do. So I just think, dude, it's something that everybody, you don't got to be in recovery to take that lesson away from this.
No, and to be honest, man, I was agnostic when I came in. I didn't know what I believed in. I was mad at God. I was so pissed off at God. I was like, man, how are you going to put me through all this shit? Because at that point, I was seeing people overdose, die, best friend coming out of high school died, you know, like all these incidents that happen in between the storyline. I just told you the main points. There's so many things inside of that resonated inside of my soul that pushed me away from a higher power. But I choose to call it God because people kind of understand that.
Yeah, right.
But it's more of a spirit of the universe, energy type of thing for me to simplify it.
Right.
Or sure. It keeps progressing and turning into something more amazing than I ever thought it could be.
Right. What would you say? So all your trials, tribulations, all this shit that you've been through, you know, when you sit back and think about it, what was the one most important lesson you've learned in this entire journey?
Man, the most important lesson that I learned was to give way more than you take. That was the most important.
Right.
Because I got all these blessings in my life today from giving back.
Right.
Like none of that came from me taking from somebody else's time or trying to like maneuver my way into something snake-like. Like I earned everything I got today, and a lot of that is because of interactions like we had, man.
Right.
Like just helping somebody out simply because I know that that'll help me and them at the same time.
Right.
So that was like the biggest thing.
Right. That's great. So somebody out here listening to this right now, they're watching this, they hear your story, but they're struggling just like you were. What's your advice to them?
My advice is to stop living in your head. Stop. Because the sooner you stop living up there and live out here with us and ask for help, the better it gets.
Right.
And the faster it will happen.
Right.
But just sitting there internally and sitting inside of yourself, that's where we all get sick as addicts.
Right. Yeah, it's like a default for us to get inside our head like that and take a look around and be like, how's it working out for you? And you're like, it's obviously not doing much. But like you just said, you know, it takes humbling yourself a little bit to ask for that help and that guidance and stuff like that. But dude, for whatever reason, I lived in this bubble where I didn't think there was anybody out there to help me when I needed it.
Yeah.
But when you start putting some good energy out into the world and you humble yourself enough to ask, well, there is ample people out there with very same life experiences than us out here ready to help people. You know what I mean?
So many. So yeah, that would be my advice for sure, is to get out of your head and put it out there. Surrender is the key. That's probably the biggest key that I took away from this whole thing, is to know when to give up.
Right. For sure.
Yeah.
Who are your inspirations? Is there people you follow? Is it family, friends? Who do you draw inspiration from on a daily basis?
Man, you're one of my inspirations, to be honest. Yes.
Stop.
I swear. I promise. Man, there's a few. I want to say my family definitely inspires me, but I watched a lot of people through the years, like through Instagram and stuff like that, man. And I really love the way The Rock gets out there and handles things. I've followed him for years. But as far as like who I draw my inspirations from, man, it comes from all over. Most of it's musical. Like I'm a big hip hop head. So like right now I'm drawing some energy from like Khan and like a couple of these rappers that I'm listening to right now. And I pull that energy into my life in a positive way nowadays. Like I don't listen to all the crazy slanging dope and doing weird stuff rap anymore, but just because I'm not on that level anymore.
Right.
That's not to say that it doesn't come on the playlist every now and then.
Right.
But
dip your toe back into it. That was the original thing that I think connected you and I, was the music shit, and realizing we both had this love for hip hop, and I geek out over that shit. So anyway.
That's what happened. We spent like 2 hours talking about
it. Yeah. And then we're sending people back and forth to put each other on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, all right. So staying with the music theme right now.
Okay.
Tonight you're walking out. You're about to fight for the heavyweight championship in the UFC. What's your fight song? What are you walking out to?
Oh, I love that question. Man, I want to say Lose Yourself, Eminem.
Oh, can't really go wrong with that.
No.
Can't really go wrong with
Savage.
As soon as that beat comes on, it just does something to you.
It does.
Right.
And that would definitely get everybody pumped up, especially myself. So that would be my jam.
Good. I love it.
What would be yours?
Right now, today, well, Scarface has a song on his deeply rooted album called No Problem.
Ooh, I know that song.
That would be my fight song. I remember before I knew what Twitter was, I knew Nate Diaz had a Twitter. That's all I knew. I wasn't big on social media or anything, but I had first heard that song back then, and I remember sending it to Nate Diaz like he was going to see it and be like, you should walk out to this song on your next thing. So that one's always stuck with me. That's like my get ramped up song right there.
What's up?
But all right, so I got some fun questions for you. I like doing this. I like doing this after people share their experience, because I feel like people could tell their whole story, and you know a lot about that person now, but you don't know the person. And so I like these personal questions and kind of sticking with that vibe. So who are your top 5 favorite? I'm saying favorite, not the top 5 best or anything like that.
Okay.
Top 5 rappers, dead or alive. Your favorite.
Okay, Tupac's on the list.
All right.
Black Thought has always been huge for me. Lyrically,
he's my number one.
Savage.
He's my number one.
Yeah. Damn, this is a hard question. There's so many of them. I feel like my new favorite is Khan. K-A-A-N.
All right.
Dude is a beast. Eminem's on there. Royce the 5'9". Actually, no. Take that back. Take Royce out of there.
Whoa. Royce, if you're listening, I'm sorry. You got to put it off the list.
Hold on. It's one of his boys, King Crooked, also known as Crooked.
Uh-huh.
Love his style. We need one more.
No, that was 5.
It's 5?
Solid 5.
Yeah.
Right there. Very solid 5. A lot of lyricism on there. I like it.
So much.
All right. So you and I worked out this morning. What's your choice? Steak or chicken?
Steak.
Steak? All right. Good pick. If you can go anywhere in the world, you and your lovely wife, Nina. Hi, Nina.
Hey, Nina.
Hey, babe. You can go anywhere in the world, you and her. Where are you going?
Oh, man. She would probably disagree.
This is for you.
I want to say Bali.
Bali? What do you know about Bali?
Bali or Fiji, one of the two.
Have you Googled and looked up Bali?
Yes.
I know it's supposed to be luxurious, but I don't even know where it is.
It's super tropical. It's like right in the middle of the jungle. Fiji's an island, so it's surrounded by water.
Right.
Gorgeous.
Right.
So I would say Fiji.
Where is Bali?
Bali's on the tip of Indonesia. It's South Pacific Islands, basically.
I have a buddy named JR. He probably knows where Bali is.
Yes.
He knows all those type of places.
I wouldn't doubt it.
All right.
Fiji's the answer.
If you can go back in time, you can see either Tupac or Biggie in concert. Who are you going to see?
Tupac, hands down.
Tupac?
Hands down.
Ooh, hands down? You wouldn't even have to think of it? No. Okay. I respect it. That would be mine too.
But Biggie's great.
Right.
Let's not take away from Biggie.
Right.
Biggie's a savage.
Right.
But Tupac
is Tupac. Right.
Yeah. He'll elevate a crowd immediately.
So one of the, through your and I's friendship and journey and stuff like that, you got outside of your comfort zone and you dived into my world for a while. Right when I was at the height of all my running and I'm running all these ultra marathons, you so many people would hear about some of these races that I was doing, and they would immediately shy away. They didn't want any part of it. And so you got outside your comfort zone, and you started coming on some runs with me, you ran some races and stuff like that. What was that experience like for you?
That was beautiful. And this is part of why we're friends, right? Because now I decide to surround myself with people that are trying to progress, that are trying to shoot for redemption.
Mm-hmm.
And not because they have to prove themselves, but just to push themselves to the limit and see what changes and what moves and what shakes away. Because I saw you shaking away all your stuff with the running, and I was like, I want a piece of that.
Right.
And I think that's part of what you give to the world. And so I wanted to be a piece of that and give that back to the world and keep the chain going.
You just give me goosebumps, dude.
Yeah, man.
What was the longest race you ended up doing?
I was 50K. What's that? 31.4 miles.
Something like that.
On the most wicked trail in Bandera, Texas.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
And it was raining the whole time.
Right. So quick funny story. I had taken a group of non-runners, and we'd kind of formed a little group, and I trained everybody up to run this 50K out in Bandera, Texas. For those that don't know where Bandera is, it's a very it would remind you of like the Old West. That's the best way I can describe it. But down south, very rocky mountains and very technical trails and stuff like that. So I wanted to be there for you guys and support throughout the race, because I knew some people would be going through some mentally and physically challenging times. And so this was during COVID, and they would stagger the race starts. So some people would race on Saturday, some people would race on Sunday. I went down a day early and ran my race the day before so I could support y'all. And I had absolutely beautiful weather. And then this group of non-runners that had just all been trained for this race end up catching some of the most wicked weather you'd ever seen running this 50K. But you finished strong, dude. Super proud of you for that.
I did it in 8 hours, I think.
So I'm not sure what you're talking about.
It was about 8 hours.
Finishing was the goal.
That's all I wanted to do.
Right.
And I proved to myself through that training that we did that I can do anything.
Right.
I mean, if you can run like that, you can do anything.
That's what I did. That running taught me so much about myself and making me realize that, people think running and they automatically think of their lungs burning and their side hurting with a cramp and physically hard, but the mental toughness that you get from that, and then
it's huge.
Everything in your brain and your body's telling you, I don't need to take one more step right now. What you do, and then you cross that line, you're like, oh shit, like if I could do that, what else can I do?
Right. And
that's what opened me up into the world that I was in.
Dude, what stuck with me, something you said before that first race that we did, you were like, dude, the first part is rough. The first part is strength.
Physical.
The second is mental.
Yeah.
And he's like, that last part is spiritual.
Yeah.
Like you got to pull it all out of your spirit to get it. And that's how that race was, man.
Dude, I remember saying that when they interviewed me for the documentary, and the running the 100-mile race, the first 60 miles was all physical. I knew I could do it, but then all of a sudden then you're sore. Yeah. And then your lactic acid is all built up. And so your body is telling you, I'm done. But so your brain is what's going to keep your body going. And so the next, 20, 30 miles was all my, mental. And then at that last 20 miles or whatever it was,
that had to be.
The mental toughness is gone now. And I truly don't know what tells me or anybody else to keep going. But thank God I did. My life would probably be very different had I not.
Yeah.
But what would you say is what's your guilty pleasure?
Oh man, gummy bears.
Go ahead.
Seriously, bro, I know gummy bears, man. I don't know what it is,
dude. Every time you and I we hang out or talk, you're like, "Oh, bro, I've been eating healthy. I've been doing good. I'm laying off the sugar, and then I'll go to a closet or something, and there'll be the how do you say it? Haribo gummy bears. They're fire though. They're so good.
So good.
All right.
Yeah, that's my guilty pleasure.
Last one. Who's your favorite artist? One of our things is putting music on, or putting people up on the music. We both are passionate about it. We like doing it. I like sharing artists that people have no idea who is. So that's what we had done for each other. So what's one artist that you don't think anybody knows about that you want people to know about?
Man, and we were actually listening to a few on the way here. Out of those two, who would you pick? that I showed you today.
Probably the second one. They're both good.
Ollie Joseph.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ollie Joseph. He's just kind of getting out there, and he's got this savagery about him.
Yeah.
His delivery's on point, and lyrically, I feel like he's going to be a force to be reckoned with, for sure.
Good shit. So the way I like to close every podcast, obviously the podcast is called the I Am Redemption. And so, I think my goal with doing all this is wanting people to understand that everybody has their own life experience. Everybody's different people. Everybody has come across moments of redemption and stuff in their life. So who's Russell? If you would be so kind, you want to look into the camera, tell people who Russell is.
I am a believer. I am strength. I am caring. I am compassion. I am honest.
That's good, brother. Well, I love you, man. I appreciate you. You inspire me. If I know you can get this deep in the recovery game, I know I can too. So thank you for taking the time. Thank you for coming in.
Absolutely.
Nina, thank you for letting me borrow him for the day. Greatly appreciate it. We love you. And I love you, brother. Thank you.
Love you too, man.